get who Jesus is. Now, you at first could say the disciples are fishermen. I mean, they're not the smartest people in the world. I mean, if you read through the Gospels, at times they seem like, it's that kid on Family Guy, Chris. Hey, you're walking on water. You know, they're just not piecing it all together. There's a lot going on for them. So, there's that. But here's the second thing. Jesus is a bit of an anomaly to a Jewish audience in this way. The Old Testament, really, I don't know if you've ever read through it, but really the pulse of the Old Testament is an arrow pointing forward to a coming Messiah. Just one long arrow moving forward to a coming deliverer, okay? And so, if you go through there and you look, you'll notice that there's different descriptions given of this deliverer that are very, we'll say, contrasting. There's one description of a coming Messiah who would die for the sins of his people, but there's another description of of this coming Messiah as like some reigning, glorious, glowing king. And in fact, I want you to see it. So look, here, go ahead, keep going. All right, here are the two different pictures in the Old Testament. Mandy. All right. You need to take care of something. All right. Messiah as reigning king. This comes from the book of Daniel. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All peoples, nations, and men of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away. And now, in the book of Isaiah, we're talking about the Messiah again, and it says, surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows. Yet we considered him stricken by God, smitten by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. Now, do you see the contrast there? And so for a Jewish audience, they do not understand how these two things can both be true. And so it's confusing. And so what Jesus does is he takes both pictures and he puts them together and kind of photoshops them. And he basically says, I am the Messianic king, but the kingdom of God will unfurl in humility, brokenness, and death. That's how he pieces the message together. The two different visions. And so, in some cases, people were waiting for some incredibly powerful, glorious, glowing God to show up. And Jesus is saying, I am that person, but I am not displaying my power in that way. Now, I want to point out something to you, and this is really, really important. Put up the next slide. In the Old Testament, there are at least 70 specific predictions about what the Messiah would be like, what he would do, where he would come from, so that the Israelites would not miss him when he showed up. And so as you read through the Old Testament, you'll see prediction after prediction. The Messiah will be like this. The Messiah will be like that. The Messiah will be like this, over and over and over again. 70 to 80 specific predictions, about 300 allusions. And I'm just going to give you two of them. Ready? Here. Micah. Okay, the book is written about 700 BC, 750 years before Jesus was born. You, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from eternity past. Okay, so, all right, are you ready? The Messiah is going to be born in Bethlehem. So look for that. Here's another one. Isaiah. The book of Isaiah is written 600 years before Jesus. The Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will be with a child and will give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel. Emmanuel, the Hebrew means God with us. Okay? Now, we could look at the other 68, but the gospel writers throw these out from time to time and say basically this. What are the I mean, what are the odds right now? I mean, you could do a search, Google it. Put in those criteria on your search query. He's got to be born in Bethlehem. He's got to be born of a virgin. See how many names pop up. I mean, it does kind of narrow things down, doesn't it? I mean, are there really that many people who have claimed to be the Messiah born in Bethlehem? So it's a very strong point. A very powerful case. All right. Third, why is Jesus sleeping? All right, this is going to get abstract. All right, yeah, I'll put it this way. Well, let's flip it around. Ask this question. What would have happened if Jesus was awake? Well, the disciples wouldn't have been fearful. Maybe, probably not. They wouldn't have had this crisis of faith. They wouldn't have come running over to Jesus, and they wouldn't have recognized him in the same way as they did. A lot would have happened if he had been awake, or a lot wouldn't have happened. And you will notice as you read through the Gospels, more significant even sometimes when Jesus is there is when he's not there. And so what you see is that Jesus' purposeful absence is to allow us to be in a spiritual process and on a spiritual journey. Because guess what? If Jesus is here and he's the size of Mount Rushmore, glowing with a jersey that says God, everyone bows their knee. No one's on a journey. Everyone says, you know, I always liked you. There's no place to be on a journey, is there? And this gets into the nature of God's self-disclosure. And a lot of times we answer these questions philosophically, and there's nothing wrong with that. But philosophy is usually linear logic, and linear logic answers certain questions, but it does not answer others. Logic is a way of knowing, but there are other ways of knowing, aren't there? There's an aesthetic way of knowing, isn't there? I mean, for instance, there are some people in here who can tell you what fabric is going to be in the fall. I don't know how they know. They just know. They see the cadence of certain colors and fabrics and patterns, and as a result of what has been, they can tell you what will be. I mean, some people really aren't cooler than other people. There is an aesthetic way of knowing certain things. And you can't logically say, why logically will lime green be in? I don't know. But it will be. I mean, I don't know that. But that's an example if you knew that. Now,